So one very interesting thing about being in the current era of gaming that we find ourselves in with the Nintendo Switch is the fact that it is a truly hybrid form factor, and it truly did merge together Nintendo's handheld system with their home console. And if you think back through Nintendo's entire history, since the NES, they have marketed a handheld console alongside their mainline home console, and with that, we saw games developed on both platforms. And as someone who grew up as a lifelong Legend of Zelda fan and enjoying all of the various 2D releases in the franchise that were brand new from the ground up titles developed for handhelds alongside of the mainline 3D console releases, it is now an interesting talking point around whether or not Nintendo will continue to support brand new 2D or overhead classic style Zelda experiences alongside of your mainline Tears of the Kingdom style games. And in today's video, I want to walk down memory lane together, boot up one of my favorite all-time 2D Zelda games with you all, and share my personal thoughts and feelings on how we may see Nintendo navigate the hybrid form factor landscape going forward with things like 2D and 3D Zelda games in the future. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. And as mentioned, guys, today we are walking down memory lane together, booting up Zelda: A Link to the Past, which, to be fair, is a game that I have not played through to its completion in far too long now, but I have fantastic memories and nostalgia going through this game, actually after Ocarina of Time, because what happened for me with Ocarina of Time is it cemented Zelda is my favorite gaming series period ever, and then I went back and fell in love with the entire series and all of the previous classics, of course, and you have to go through and experience all of them. And what I was blown away with was the fact that after experiencing a game like Ocarina of Time, which blew my mind in 3D, that I had arguably close to, if not as enjoyable of an experience going through a 2D edition of a very similar format, and like in terms of the storytelling and the worlds, even light and dark instead of time travel, but you have the light world and then you have the dark world. Very similar if you guys have played A Link Between Worlds, kind of that, it was a love letter, kind of a half remake, if you will, but with new gameplay mechanics and definitely a different story and timeline, but still vast similarities, kind of same setting, same Hyrule, all of that. Well, for me, it kind of blew me away that you can already have such a revolutionary 3D experience, but alongside it can exist a 2D experience that is as enjoyable, if not more, for some fans, especially if you played this game first before Ocarina of Time. I could see why some people do claim that this is the best Zelda game ever released. And I don't just immediately dismiss that either, because what this did is it started the lore for the Legend of Zelda series. It started a lot of, you know, the vast grand adventure, conquer multiple dungeons, introduce so many of the items that we've become accustomed to as Legend of Zelda fans. And, you know, so for what it did historically, that it's already impressive. Then you have to look at the fact that every single console all the way up until the Switch has had a development cycle for mainline new Zelda adventures that are 2D or 2.5D even, but just this overhead classical, you know, Zelda style experience. You had these developed alongside of mainline games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and even Skyward Sword. And so we're kind of now in a unique position where, you know, fans of Mario, we've talked about Mario on the channel in 2D before. We've even talked about Zelda in 2D and whether or not we can expect these games to come back long ago on the channel. And, you know, it's one of those things, and you guys will have to bear with me here because the exact path is not fully memorized. We'll figure it out together, but it's more about just kind of appreciating what this game was rather than really making a ton of story progress and things. You know, it's one of those things, though, that we do see them not have to put development dollars behind separated 2D titles anymore. And some people, I think, even feel like maybe there's not as much of a place for 2D games in the modern era. I definitely don't feel like that because I have all the nostalgia in the world for these 2D classic titles, but I do see that argument, at least, because a lot of the gamers that are growing up today, if you've already had these incredible 3D experiences, you might not prioritize or put a 2D experience on that same level of quality. But I do think that you know, as I mentioned, experiencing Ocarina of Time, then going back and just falling more in love with the Zelda series from playing through games like this, that there is still a spot for them. And that really, you know, comes down to the question of like, what is companies like Grezzo going to be working on? What are they currently working on? Will we see projects other than things like a Link's Awakening style remasters of these classic 2D games? Which, by the way, I think you can make a strong case that A Link to the Past should get its own remake treatment one day. But do we talk about the fact that maybe we're not going to see any kind of Legend of Zelda support in the 2D era anymore? Or is it something that we will actually get mainline, new, freshly developed titles alongside of Tears of the Kingdom? And that's what I think Nintendo should do. I think Nintendo, quite honestly, came up with the most genius strategy ever to merge their handheld console and their home console, and I hope they don't get away from that anytime soon with their wacky creativity. There's no telling with a company like Nintendo, but I think that with Furukawa being more of a business and numbers man, I think that he will make a safer transition and strategy to what is next in terms of console generation. And I think that you just hit copy paste and repeat what you did that was so vastly successful for the Switch, and providing that that is the direction they go, and we can expect the handheld and the home console to be merged for the foreseeable future. Well, I don't want the mainline experiences that would have been developed for handheld to be totally forgotten. And that's where I think, like, whenever we're having this massive build-up time to, we're kind of going in circles here, but when we're having things like massive development time for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, well, then that, while we're waiting on these mainline new experiences, wouldn't it be better to be having like a brand new Zelda to play, or even start out with just doing the remasters? Wow, this guy's really got my number right now. Let's not get a game over on screen. Come on. There we go. Kind of some strategy that you have to go into. Hopefully we can find a heart so that's not going to be dinging the whole time, because it's kind of some strategy though on the combat on this. Is like you have to kind of be above them in order, especially like the enemies with the swords, in order to hit them correctly. So like this game is you know, it packs a punch in difficulty also, especially certain boss fights and things. But you know, do we see Nintendo kind of continue support, or do we see them really shift to only putting all of their resources onto mainline releases? I think fans would enjoy new experiences, and maybe, like I said, maybe they start with more of the 2D remaster type, and so the Oracle games are next on the list, and then one day we get a Link Between Worlds, or even a Link to the Past brought over in a Link's Awakening rather style game. Maybe that is truly the path that Nintendo will take, and if they do that, I'm all here for it. But I think that we need to get past that once we get the all of the remasters that we want to come back, that at some point in the future past that, we need to see new experiences developed. And when you're talking about 6 or 7 years game development time in between mainline Zelda titles and projects, well, I think there's plenty of a market for it, and you don't have to put the same team on there. You can put 2 different teams separated and have them developing Zelda experiences for fans of 2D and 3D. So anyway, that's where my nostalgia for 2D games lie, and that's where I hope Nintendo goes with things like 2D Mario and 2D Zelda. And heck, even if we start to get more of a consistent release schedule around 2D Donkey Kong, I would love for all of that stuff to coexist alongside each other, and kind of have the era of gamers that grew up in my generation still have those classic experiences that you can enjoy, and I'm sure kids will get into them as well, and you know, have that sell. And it's not going to do the big Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom numbers, but you still have some supplemental games while we're waiting for these increasingly longer game development times that we see with mainline AAA games nowadays. So again, that's where I fall on it. I really want to hear from you guys. If you have, you know, love and nostalgia for games like A Link to the Past, if you think that Nintendo should absolutely continue to create brand new experiences like this, or do you think that it's something that it makes more sense for them just to do ports and remasters of these 2D games, and then really at that point they should only shift to more of a full-on 3D experience? Or do you think that there is a market for both? Because that's definitely where my mindset is. And again, I'm aware that it could be some of the nostalgia talking, and that maybe it won't sell as well as I think it will, but I still think that there's enough gamers out there that have love and nostalgia for this style of gameplay, Even the audio, the graphics, everything, even 2D HD style games look beautiful. Not everything has to be a full-on Link's Awakening, like full sprites redone and with new textures. Like, you can even bring them back in a more true love letter style to the classic style game, and it still look beautiful and amazing. But again, guys, I really want to hear from you at this point in the video. Share with me all your thoughts, nostalgia, and where you think the Legend of Zelda franchise as a whole is headed in the 2D/3D era, and whether or not you think we're getting any kind of new major releases around the corner. And bonus question, what games from the 2D Zelda era would you most like to see fully brought back and remastered, and which kind of direction would you like to see Nintendo go with new experiences, if you think that we get that ultimately at all? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.